Adversity does not break you, it reveals who you truly are. Life does not test us in moments of comfort. It tests us in moments when everything seems uncertain, when those we trusted turn their backs, when the path ahead is clouded, and the future feels far beyond reach. Joseph's journey began not with triumph, but with betrayal. Thrown into a pit by his own brothers, sold as a slave, and cast into a foreign land with no ally and no explanation, his life appeared to shatter before it had even truly begun. And yet, in the silence of that suffering, something within him awakened. That something was not weakness, not resentment, not bitterness. It was strength, the kind of strength that doesn't announce itself with noise, but endures in stillness. Most people believe that strength is about how loud we are, how much we can control, how many battles we win. But true strength, as Joseph's story teaches, is quiet. It's the strength to keep your character when no one sees your integrity. It's the strength to choose discipline when there is no applause. It's the strength to stand when you feel like collapsing. Joseph had every reason to give up. He had no family, no support, no visible future. But what he had was vision, not a vision of circumstances, but a vision of self. He remembered the dream, the one that had caused the jealousy, the one that made no sense in the middle of his suffering. Yet still, he carried it. In the house of Potiphar, Joseph didn't complain about injustice. He served with excellence, with loyalty, with focus, and when temptation came in the form of Potiphar's wife, he did not compromise. He walked away, even though it cost him more suffering. He chose what was right, not what was easy, and again he was thrown into prison, not because of guilt, but because of integrity. Most people would have broken there. Most would have given up on the idea that doing good leads to good, but Joseph was not most people. Adversity was shaping him, not destroying him. It was revealing the resilience that had always been within. In that prison, Joseph grew. He listened, he helped others, he interpreted dreams. Even when his kindness was forgotten, he did not let bitterness take root. The truest test of a person's character is not in what they do when all is going well, but how they behave when the world seems against them. Joseph kept rising, not because people lifted him, but because he refused to sink. He refused to let his identity be defined by betrayal or slavery or prison walls. He knew that adversity is not the enemy of growth. It is the catalyst. Fire does not destroy gold. It purifies it. Pressure does not destroy the diamond. It creates it. Storms do not stop the eagle. They carry it higher. When Pharaoh called Joseph out of the prison, Joseph didn't rush in with ambition. He moved with humility. He didn't boast about his abilities. He acknowledged that interpretation belongs to God. Even after all the years of being overlooked, mistreated, and abandoned, he was not hardened. He was prepared. The adversity had carved out wisdom, sharpened insight, and birthed in him the leadership that Egypt needed. One day, he stood second in command over the most powerful nation in the world. But the height of his success was only possible because of the depth of his suffering. And then came the moment of greatest revelation, when his brothers stood before him, not knowing who he was. The same brothers who had cast him out, who had set the whole journey in motion. He had the power to punish, to seek revenge, but instead Joseph wept. He forgave, he embraced them. He saw the hand of purpose behind the hand of pain. What was meant for evil, God had used for good. The adversity that others designed to destroy him became the exact road to his destiny. We all will face pits. We will be misunderstood, falsely accused, forgotten, rejected. But in those places, we do not lose ourselves. We find ourselves. We do not collapse under pressure. We rise through it. Joseph's life whispers a lesson to every soul still stuck in their own prison. Your condition does not define your character, and your present adversity is not a prophecy of permanent defeat. It is a preparation for something greater. The greatest strength is not in conquering others, but in conquering yourself, in choosing to stay pure when no one is watching, in choosing to believe when nothing is changing, in choosing to act with kindness when you've only been treated with cruelty. Joseph did not become who he was in Pharaoh's courts. He became who he was in the pit, in the prison, and in the pain. That is where the roots of greatness grow, in the unseen, uncelebrated, uncomfortable places. Every trial you face is asking you one question: who are you without your robe, without your title, without your recognition? Who are you when all is stripped away? Joseph's answer was simple: I am faithful, I am strong, I am who I was created to be, not because of my position, but in spite of my circumstances. And so are you. You were not built to break. You were built to bend, to stretch, to grow, and to rise again. So when adversity comes, don't ask why me. Ask what now? What is this teaching me? What is this awakening in me? What is this preparing me for? Because adversity does not break you, it reveals you. Patience is not waiting. It is trusting the process without losing faith. Waiting is something we all do, in traffic, in lines, in seasons of life. But patience, true patience, is not passive. It is active surrender. It is the discipline of the soul to remain grounded while everything around you seems delayed. Joseph did not just wait, he trusted. From the moment he was sold into slavery, his life was marked by waiting. He waited in Potiphar's house, learning discipline. He waited in prison, learning humility. He waited in silence, being prepared for something his eyes could not yet see. Time did not move quickly for Joseph. Nothing was instant. No dream came true overnight. The vision he had seen in his youth, of standing tall while others bowed, felt distant and impossible, and yet something within him refused to let go. That refusal wasn't rooted in pride. It was rooted in faith, the kind of faith that does not need evidence to stand, the kind of faith that says, even if I don't see the way, I will keep walking. Even if nothing changes today, I will keep showing up with excellence, with integrity, with honor. To many, patience looks like doing nothing, but for Joseph, patience meant showing up in the small things over and over again. It meant running a household with care, even when he was still a servant. It meant serving fellow prisoners with kindness, even when he was unjustly imprisoned. It meant interpreting dreams for others, even when his own dream felt like a forgotten story. He was not waiting for his breakthrough while doing nothing. He was cultivating the mindset, the discipline, the character required to hold the blessing when it came. It's easy to be faithful when the reward is visible, but Joseph teaches us to be faithful when there is no reward in sight. He teaches us that patience is not resignation. It is a powerful decision to trust that every step, every delay, every detour has purpose. The world tells us that success is speed, that achievement is urgency, that waiting means failure. But Joseph shows us another way, the higher path, a path where we trust the timing even when the clock feels silent, a path where we release the illusion of control and lean into growth. In that prison cell, he was not just waiting for release. He was being reshaped. Each day in obscurity was refining him, sharpening his focus, teaching him how to handle responsibility, how to lead others, how to navigate power with wisdom. The longer he waited, the deeper his roots grew. The deeper his roots, the higher he could rise without falling. We often ask for elevation, but do not understand the preparation that must come first. Joseph's waiting was not wasted, it was sacred. Patience also means trusting that your current season does not define your entire life. You may feel trapped now, overlooked, misunderstood, but that is not the end. Joseph was not always going to be in the pit or the prison. But he didn't need the crown to act like a king. He didn't wait for position to act with purpose. He carried himself with dignity, even when the world stripped him of status. That is the heart of patience, not waiting for life to be perfect, but living with purpose while life is still in process. When the moment finally came and Pharaoh called for Joseph, he was ready, not because he had been waiting with bitterness, but because he had been waiting with belief. He didn't let his heart grow cold. He didn't let time turn him into a victim. He kept himself sharp. He interpreted Pharaoh's dream with clarity and offered wisdom that saved a nation. That wisdom was not born in a classroom. It was born in the silent hours of prison, in the discipline of patience, in the fire of long suffering. Even when the cupbearer forgot him, Joseph did not collapse in despair. It was another delay, yes, but delays are not denials. That's what patience teaches us. The promise still stands, even when the calendar is silent. The delay is not a sign that it's over. It's a sign that more is being developed. Just because something takes time doesn't mean it's not real. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. Joseph's dream did not die in the dungeon. It matured, and so did he. There is a quiet kind of strength in patience, the strength to hold on when others let go, the strength to move forward without recognition, the strength to rise daily without proof that things are about to change. Joseph's life reminds us that the most powerful people are not always the loudest. Sometimes they are the ones who endure the longest, who keep believing even when belief costs everything. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not the breakthrough itself, but the person you become while waiting for it. The waiting seasons form the foundation of who you are. They strip away ego. They teach dependence. They train your eyes to see beyond circumstances. That's why Joseph never sought revenge. He didn't let bitterness take root in the waiting. He didn't turn cold in the delay. When the dream came to pass, he was ready not just externally, but internally. He was healed, he had let go, he had trusted the process. Many people ask for destiny but reject the delay. They want the reward without the wait. But Joseph's story tells us that delay is not a punishment. It is a pathway. Every slow season is doing something eternal in you. It's stretching your patience, deepening your faith, clarifying your vision. If you rush the process, you will miss the growth. If you trust it, you will rise like Joseph, not just successful, but stable, not just elevated, but transformed. There is a reason the promise takes time. Because it is not only about what you will do when you arrive, it's about who you become on the way. Joseph became a man of wisdom, compassion, and foresight, not because of quick results, but because of faithful patience. His rise was not sudden, it was steady, it was slow, but it was sure. So do not despise the wait, do not curse the time it takes. The seeds planted in patience will bloom in power. The person you are becoming now will sustain the promise when it comes. Joseph didn't just wait for his future. He walked through every delay with trust. He let time teach him. He let silence shape him. That is patience. That is strength. That is the path to greatness. Forgiveness frees the one who was wounded, not just the one who caused the wound. Joseph's life is a profound reminder that true strength is not only shown in leadership or victory, but in the ability to forgive those who caused deep harm. He was betrayed by his own brothers, the very people who should have protected him, who should have stood with him. They didn't just envy him. They stripped him of his dignity, tore him from his father, and sold him as though his life held no value. That kind of betrayal leaves scars that run deep, not only through the skin but through the soul. Yet when the moment came for Joseph to face his brothers again, his response was not revenge, but mercy. That moment did not come quickly. It was many years later, after Joseph had endured slavery, prison, false accusations, and abandonment. He rose to power in Egypt, second only to Pharaoh, overseeing the resources of a nation during a time of global famine. His brothers came to him not knowing who he was, desperate for food, unaware that the man standing before them was the very one they had left for dead. In that moment, Joseph held all the power. He could have exposed them, he could have judged them, he could have let them suffer just as he had, but he didn't. Joseph wept, not out of weakness, but out of release. The pain he had carried, the questions he had buried, the injustice he had endured, it all came to the surface, and instead of holding on to it, he let it go. He chose forgiveness. That decision did not erase the past, but it healed the wound. Forgiveness did not mean forgetting what they had done. It meant choosing not to let their actions define his future. It meant choosing peace over punishment, freedom over resentment. Forgiveness was the doorway Joseph walked through to fully embrace the life he had been given. Many people think forgiveness is about the other person, about letting them off the hook. But in truth, forgiveness is about setting yourself free from the weight of bitterness. When you hold on to anger, it doesn't hurt the one who wronged you. It poisons your own heart. It clouds your thoughts. It drains your energy. It keeps you stuck in the moment of pain. But forgiveness lifts that burden. It says, I will not carry this any longer. I will not let this pain have power over me. Joseph could have let his brother's betrayal harden him. He could have let that moment in the pit define every relationship moving forward, but he didn't. He allowed himself to feel the pain, but he refused to be ruled by it. And in doing so, he became a whole man. Not just a powerful man, not just a successful man, a healed man, that healing wasn't just for him. It became a blessing for his family, his nation, and generations to come. When Joseph finally revealed his identity to his brothers, he didn't shout. He didn't accuse, he cried. He embraced them, he reassured them. He told them not to be afraid. He said, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good." That one sentence reveals a heart that had surrendered to a higher perspective. Joseph saw the bigger picture. He saw that pain had become purpose, that wounds had become wisdom, that the very betrayal that could have destroyed him became the path to his destiny. Forgiveness is not easy. It is not natural. The natural response to pain is defense, retaliation, avoidance. But forgiveness is supernatural. It rises above the emotion and chooses a better way. It is not denial of the hurt. It is transformation of the hurt. Joseph didn't excuse his brothers. He didn't pretend nothing happened, but he also didn't hold them captive in the memory of their mistake. He let them go, so he could be free too. In our own lives, we face betrayal in different forms. From family, from friends, from strangers. We carry memories of words that cut, actions that crushed, moments that marked us. The longer we hold on to them, the heavier they become. Forgiveness does not mean we forget, but it does mean we stop feeding the fire of anger. We stop playing the moment over and over in our minds. We choose peace over pain. That choice takes strength. It takes humility, but it leads to true freedom. Joseph's story also shows us that forgiveness is often a process. He didn't forgive immediately. He had to grow. He had to heal. And when the time came, his heart was ready. Sometimes we rush ourselves or others to forgive before the healing has even begun. But real forgiveness flows from a heart that has faced the pain honestly, sat with it, wrestled with it, and then released it. It cannot be forced, but it must be chosen eventually if we ever hope to live in freedom. There is a power that comes from letting go, not weakness. Bauer, it is easy to stay angry. It takes no discipline to carry resentment, but to release that anger, to bless those who hurt you, to rise above what they did and walk in love. That is power. Joseph's ability to forgive made him a greater leader, a better man, and a bridge between generations. His forgiveness brought healing to a broken family and unity to a fractured legacy. And perhaps the most important part of Joseph's forgiveness is that it reflected something greater than himself. It showed that he trusted in God's plan more than in his pain. He believed that even the worst chapters of his life had meaning. He believed that his story was not controlled by those who harmed him, but by the one who redeemed him. That faith made his forgiveness possible. When we trust that our story is not over, we can let go of the parts we wish never happened. Because we know they are not the end, they are just part of the journey. Forgiveness frees the wounded, it restores the soul, it clears the heart, it opens the door to purpose. Joseph shows us what it looks like to carry pain with grace and to release it with wisdom. He shows us that forgiveness is not forgetting the hurt. It's remembering it without letting it control you. That's what sets you free. That's what makes you whole. That's what Joseph chose. And that is what you can choose too. True purpose often lies hidden beneath the layers of suffering. It rarely announces itself in moments of ease or predictability. Instead, it forms quietly in the dark seasons, in the confusing chapters, in the places where pain seems to have more presence than hope. Joseph's life is a clear reflection of this truth. As a young man, he had a dream, visions of greatness, of honor, of divine favor. But almost immediately after receiving that vision, his life took a turn that looked nothing like purpose. It looked like betrayal, it looked like injustice, it looked like abandonment. The dream didn't die, but it did disappear beneath layers of hardship. When his brothers sold him into slavery, Joseph could not have known that this would be the beginning of his purpose unfolding. How could being torn from his family and sold for silver lead to anything good? How could chains and separation ever lead to fulfillment? But what Joseph didn't see then, and what most people often miss in their own lives, is that purpose is not always loud. It is not always clear. Sometimes it is wrapped in the very experiences we would never choose for ourselves. Sometimes suffering is not punishment, it is preparation. As Joseph served in Potiphar's house, he was being trained. He didn't know it, but the responsibility he was given, the management skills he practiced, the self-control he exercised, these were not meaningless tasks. They were shaping him for something greater. He had no throne, but he was learning to lead. He had no title, but he was gaining trust. And then, when he resisted temptation and stood for what was right, he was punished again, this time not by strangers, but by the very system he had served faithfully. Thrown into prison, his situation only worsened, but purpose was still present. It was just buried deeper now, under another layer of suffering. In prison, Joseph did not collapse. He adapted. He remained true to his character. He earned the respect of the guards. He showed kindness to fellow prisoners. He interpreted dreams, using the same gift that once isolated him from his brothers. Even when forgotten again by the cupbearer, Joseph stayed the course. Every disappointment, every delay, every betrayal added another layer to the foundation of his future. These were not detours from his purpose. They were essential parts of it. It is easy to see purpose when things are going well. It is much harder to believe in purpose when you're in the pit, when you're sitting in a prison for doing the right thing, when you've been faithful and still feel forgotten. But it is in these moments, just like in Joseph's life, that purpose is taking shape. It grows not only in the reward, but in the resistance. It matures in the middle of struggle, in the tension between the promise and its fulfillment. Joseph's rise to power came suddenly on the outside, but was years in the making on the inside. When Pharaoh called him to interpret a dream, Joseph was ready, not because of last-minute preparation, but because of what he had already endured. He had become a man of insight, of calm wisdom, of measured speech. He was no longer the naive teenager who boasted about dreams. He was now a man who could bear the weight of nations. He had grown into his purpose through every painful season he had walked through. When Joseph was elevated to second in command in Egypt, it wasn't just a personal promotion. It was the fulfillment of a divine plan that had been unfolding all along. A famine was coming, and God needed someone in place who had not only the strategic mind to manage resources, but the depth of heart to lead with compassion. Joseph had both, not despite his suffering, but because of it. His purpose was not just to rise, but to rescue, not just to succeed, but to serve. His suffering had produced the strength he needed to fulfill that purpose. And then came the ultimate test, the moment when his past collided with his present. His brothers arrived in Egypt, desperate and starving, unaware that the one they needed was the one they had once betrayed. Joseph now had the power. He could have acted out of anger. He could have made them pay. But his purpose was greater than revenge. It was restoration. What had been hidden for so long was now fully revealed. His purpose was not just about ruling Egypt. It was about reconciling a family, about preserving a lineage, about fulfilling a promise that stretched far beyond himself. Joseph's ability to forgive, to weep, to embrace his brothers, these actions were not signs of weakness. They were the final expression of a purpose that had been forged in fire. His suffering had stripped away pride, had deepened empathy, had built endurance. He didn't just rise to power, he rose with perspective. He could now look back and say, "You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good." That is the voice of someone who has found purpose on the other side of pain. In our own lives, purpose often feels hidden. We look at our struggles and wonder why. We face setbacks and question if anything meaningful will come from them. But Joseph's life reminds us that the purpose is never gone. It is simply buried beneath the surface, being shaped quietly through every trial. What feels like suffering today may be the soil where your calling takes root. What seems like a delay may be the very protection you need. What looks like rejection may be redirection to something higher. Purpose is not always comfortable, it is not always visible, but it is always at work, even when the prison doors are closed, even when the betrayal is fresh, even when the silence is heavy. Joseph teaches us to trust that our pain is not wasted, that the story is not over, that the path to purpose may be longer and more painful than expected, but it is no less true. When life doesn't make sense, when dreams are delayed, when the night seems long, remember Joseph. Remember that the pit did not end his purpose, the prison did not silence his destiny. Every season served the story, every trial refined the vessel, and when the time came, what had been hidden for years suddenly became undeniable. Joseph didn't have to chase his purpose. He just had to be faithful in every step that led there, and so do you. You may not see the full picture now. you may not understand the why. But if you remain faithful, if you walk with integrity through the suffering, if you trust even when you're tired, your purpose will rise, not all at once, not without struggle, but in the right time, in the right way, and it will be greater than you imagined. Just like Joseph, you will find that your purpose was never lost. It was just hidden beneath the layers, waiting to be revealed.